There are 15 Babysitters Club super specials and 4 super mysteries. Here are my picks for the 10 best Babysitters Club super specials. Number 10, Babysitters Beware has a good premise. One of the criminals from a past book is out for revenge. They threaten, sabotage, and try to kill the club members repeatedly. It's definitely a scary book. That's also the book's downside, as it cares more about being scary than about the plot. The culprit is a random person we've never heard of before. Yeah, it's supposed to be a returning culprit. It kind of is, but it's mostly a random person we've never heard of before. That's a letdown. Multiple storylines get dropped, and I thought it was weird how many chapters have a narrator describe events she did not witness. For example, Christy narrates a chapter where the culprit tries to kill Abby. Abby should have narrated that chapter. It would have made more sense. Number 9, California Girls has good story ideas. I remember liking it more than I actually liked it. Claudia struggles to impress her smart new boyfriend. Mallory decides to dye her hair blonde. And Derek, the interesting child star, returns. Unless I'm wrong, this book introduces the character of Carol, and it introduces Christy's feud with the We Love Kids Club. Both of these continue for the entire series. The bad parts of this super special are Christy and Marianne. They have boring babysitting jobs, which turn into a long advertisement for Universal Studios. Number 8, Babysitter Summer Vacation, where the girls are counselors at a summer camp. There's a reason the Netflix show skipped over the first super special and went straight to this one. It's got a lot of different stories, partly because some of the girls changed stories halfway through. Like, Stacy's story is about her getting sick, and then halfway through it turns into a Christmas story. Dawn, dealing with a problem child, turns into a story about her cabin getting lost in the woods. Christy and Marianne both feel immature around older girls. Mallory and Jessie stand up to racist girls. Claudia has a romance which doesn't work because the story is 2 chapters long. So she meets the boy and falls in love in chapter 1. Then she has to break up with him in chapter 2. Number 7, starring the Babysitters Club, is about the girls putting on a play. Most of the super specials are about the girls going on vacation. I like the 4 super specials that aren't vacation stories, simply because they're different. This one works well because it has the play to serve as an anchor for all the storylines. It also works when Cookie Mason interacts with multiple narrators. I liked pretty much everything, except Logan, who was boring, Karen, who was a super brat and she got rewarded for it, Claudia, who feels disconnected from the play because both of her chapters take place at home, and Dawn's story about rewriting the script, which was interesting, but it got cut off so we don't see what happens with it. Number 6, Babysitter's Island Adventure. It's memorable because of its unique premise. Claudia and Dawn are stranded on an island with some kids. They struggle to survive. It's like reading The Hatchet. It's interesting. It's not the kind of story you'd expect from this series, and it's the only super special with 2 main characters. All the other super specials try to give each girl her own story. This one really narrows in on Claudia and Dawn. They narrate 15 of the 21 chapters. The super specials normally have 3 chapter stories. So, 15 chapter story? That's great! It is really detailed compared to the others. I would have liked the super specials better if they all had a similar format, if they all had 2 or maybe 3 main characters. And it helps that Claudia and Dawn don't interact much, so it's interesting to see the 2 of them just by themselves. The super specials are a good place to try out other pairings we don't normally see, like Jessie and Stacy, Mallory and Christy, or Marianne and Abby. Actually, Abby with anyone who's not Christy. Abby's with Christy in like all of her books. Number 5, Babysitter's European Vacation, was kind of silly, but I enjoyed it. Mallory discovers she's related to William Shakespeare. Abby goes to meet the Queen and gets a silly photo of herself with a prince. And thanks to some convenient mishaps, Jessie's dancing is shown on BBC. Christy feuds with a hot guy, but she realizes she likes him when they spend 4 hours alone together in Paris. They kiss when they're alone in her room together. They spend a lot of time alone because there are 2 adults watching the 50 kids on this trip. So the kids pretty much get to do whatever they want without any parental supervision. So I guess you could say it's a dream vacation for everyone. Except Stacy, she gets a serious storyline. I think the serious storyline, it's about World War II. I think it should have been given to Abby, because Abby has relatives who died in the Holocaust, so, it makes more sense for her to have the Holocaust story. Just my personal opinion. The other babysitters have trouble at a playground camp at home. That story was nicely resolved. Number 4, Babysitter's Haunted House. The babysitters are in a mansion in Maine to help some kids adjust to their new town, but it looks like the house is haunted by a ghost. All sorts of scary things happen, and I'm really amused by the story at home, where Mallory and Jesse try to run the Babysitters Club by themselves. It's a total disaster. It's funny. And really, the club almost goes out of business because everybody's gone on vacation should be the subplot of every super special. Like the other super mysteries, this book prioritizes the scary stuff over the actual mystery. Like, Claudia's boyfriend is the prime suspect for most of the book skips over the scene where he's cleared of suspicion, and it also skips the scene where they discover how the culprit does the main haunting of lights in the locked room. The super special does a good job of having the various characters share storylines, and it's pretty long. If all you want to see is the girls get scared in a haunted house, this is a good option. Number 3, Babysitter's Christmas Chiller, splits up the girls into 3 separate groups. Hey, that's what I was saying earlier with the Island Adventure book. Yeah, only having 3 stories in a super special works well. It's totally fine by me. I would rather have 3 different storylines, which are decently developed, over 10 storylines, which are all too short to work. Claudia and Stacy go to New York, where Stacy's boyfriend starts acting weird, creepy things happen to them. I still remember the scene where Ethan leads them into the basement and he smiles at them like a murderous maniac just as the lights go out. It is so creepy. I really don't want to see Stacy date Ethan anymore. The second story is somebody robbing houses in Christie's neighborhood. This is the weakest story in terms of the mystery because Christie overlooks big, obvious clues. As in, the culprit sends her a letter which basically means, I'm not going to rob your house. But she ignores the letter. Then the culprit breaks into Abby's house and leaves the same letter for her, which is so weird. I'm going to break into your house to tell you that your house is safe from me. What was the culprit thinking? In the other mystery, Mallory finds a pregnant woman with amnesia. Mallory figures out her real identity because she's wearing clothes and a ring, which can only be found in a specific city on the other side of the country. That was an okay story. Number 2, Snowbound. There's a big blizzard, everyone gets trapped by the snow. I thought this book was interesting, even though everyone has the same basic story. Dawn is trapped at the airport and worries for her brother. Jessie and her boyfriend are trapped at dance practice, and they watch the little kids. Claudia, Marianne, and Mallory are all trapped while babysitting. My favorite stories are Christy and Stacy. Stacy and her mom are stranded in the car in the middle of nowhere. They talk to each other as a distraction from the fact that they will die if nobody finds them soon. Very emotional and tense. Christy's boyfriend, Bart, is forced to spend a night, and Christy panics because he's never met her crazy family members before. Christy is understandably upset that 4 hours of non-stop Karen will cause Bart to run away forever. It's cute to see Christy so worried about her family members. I'm sure her brothers are equally embarrassed when she meets their girlfriends. Another good thing about this book is the narration. The author goes the extra mile and gives each narrator a distinct voice. Normally, the super specials don't put that much effort into the narration, and most of the girls sound the same. Number 1, The Babysitters Remember is my favorite super special. The setup is simple. Everyone tells the story of their most vivid memory. Each story gets its own separate section. It's not like the other super specials where you get a new narrator every chapter and there's a 70-page gap in between different parts of the story. No, Each story is told from start to finish with no gaps in between. It is so much better. I love this format way better. 6-year-old Claudia struggled in school until her grandma Mimi came to her rescue. It was so cool to see Mimi again, and she was at her best. 8-year-old Marianne hates her overnight babysitter until they have a fun prank war. 10-year-old Christy babysits her brother David Michael for the first time. I mentioned their ages, 6, 8, and 10, because this basically becomes the blueprint for the Portrait Collection series. This book is so good, it inspired a 6-book spin-off series with the same format. If you've read the Portrait Collection books, you know they tell 3-chapter stories, which happened to the girls when they were 6, 8, and 10 years old. And the Portrait Collection uses a lot of story ideas from this book. We get to see everyone's first babysitting job. We get to see what they were doing right before they joined the Babysitters Club. That's Dawn's story, who talks about her parents' divorce and moved to California. It's also Stacy's story, who talks about getting diabetes and moving away from New York. Those were good stories. It's interesting to finally see those events happen since they get referenced in every recap chapter in every book. Logan and Shannon have a worse variation on the idea. Logan tells the story of book 10 from his perspective. Shannon tells book 11 from her perspective. Their retellings were not different enough from the original to be interesting, especially since Logan takes multiple scenes directly from book 10. As for Jessie, her story is about her brother being born. She hated him at first, but she came to love him. Mallory gets the worst story. It's like Anne Martin had a rant about fan mail, which she wanted to get off of her chest, and she wrote a story around it. So we get a lecture on the proper way to write letters to authors. That is Mallory's story. Then we get a lecture on the proper way to behave during a book signing. Mallory humiliates herself in front of her favorite author. She freezes up, doesn't know what to say, and she realizes the author doesn't remember her letters at all. Poor Mallory. I think I've talked long enough. Okay, so those are my choices for the 10 best Babysitters Club super specials. I'll just go through the list one more time. Babysitters Beware, California Girls, Babysitter Summer Vacation, starring the Babysitters Club, Babysitters Island Adventure, Babysitters European Vacation, Babysitters Haunted House, Babysitters Christmas Chiller, Snowbound, and Babysitters Remember.